Good evening. We're with the International Dyslexia Association Oregon branch, and we're going to be joined by another mom because in May we're celebrating moms and how awesome they are, especially for students that are dyslexic and learning challenged. So excited to share another journey with you as we bring on our next guest here. Hey,
Hello.
can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
I was just kind of getting to the introduction that we're celebrating moms in the month of May and how awesome they are and all the great work you do for students that are dyslexic and learning challenged especially, and the impact that you have. Uh, sure, it makes for positive experiences when challenge environments like education come up. So thank you for the work that you do as a mom. But Jennifer, can we get into your journey with dyslexia and how that's kind of unraveled?
So it's mostly based around Madeline. Just I think the first time I realized, sorry, something was different was she had a friend who was a year older than her come over after school one day, and they were working on homework. And I always, I think she was in first grade, and we always spent hours working on homework, the two of us together. And her friend uh, sat there and did her homework by herself. She was like in second grade, I think. It was either third and second or first and second, I don't remember. And I was like, oh my gosh, like she did it by herself. She's done in like 45 minutes. Like, that's different. So,
So what do you do at that point? Like you're kind of noticing now you're kind of seeing the comparison.
yeah. So, her teacher, her in second grade, said, Madeline's not really catching on to reading. And she talked young, so it wasn't, but in her reading was always not her reading, but if you would ask her questions about a story that she had read, she was very smart, so she could look at the pictures and grasp some of the words and answer the questions. She could figure it out based on enough.
Right.
So, um, we went down one path. I think kids who have learning differences always have more than one thing going on. So she wore glasses for a while, and at the same time we're having her see a developmental pediatrician, and um, she sent a packet for the teachers to fill out, and she sent a packet for us to fill out. And Madeline's always had lots of energy. When she was little, she never sat and watched a movie. And she has a cousin who's only 2 weeks older than her, and he would sit and watch like full length movies. Like Madeline couldn't sit through a whole episode of Dora the Explorer. Like it wasn't, and so we get the paper back from the teacher to take to the doctor, and the teacher says, Madeline seems tired. Madeline is like disengaged. I'm like, Madeline is tired? Like, Madeline doesn't sit still. I don't know what you're talking about. So her way of coping at school was basically, some kids would act out, and misbehave and get kicked out of class, and she just disengages. She just looks out the window and I don't get it, so I'll just sit here.
So she's kind of going into conservation mode. Like she's just
Yeah,
trying to like save up her energy from being in an environment she's not able to participate in.
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So
I
she would
mean,
come and bounce off the walls. I mean, she had to let it out.
totally. I mean, she's trying to be good during school
Yeah,
and just holding it all in, and but there's like you're saying, she's talkative and she's
Yeah.
connecting ideas, and she's already like she's way ahead of the game in
Yeah.
her intellect. It's just
Yeah.
this thing of reading that's
Yeah. Yeah. And for her, it's dyslexia, dyscalculia, and dysgraphia. So she always hated her handwriting. Her, it's gotten a lot better, but her handwriting is. So it was once in, I don't know, we're in a small school district, and so they've always been willing to give her accommodations. So her first testing at school, you have to have a 10-point discrepancy between your ability and your capability in order to qualify for services, for accommodations. And her first IEP, she had a 30-point discrepancy.
wow. Okay.
So it's not that she's not smart.
No.
So, yeah, it's a matter
I
of figuring
I
out. Yeah.
I want to touch on this point because I think it's important for our audience to know, and a lot of them are educators and work with dyslexia, but dyslexia and intelligence, they don't affect one another. Like your IQ is not affected by your learning challenge or your dyslexia. So I think it's just important to point out, and that's evident with Madeline and her ability to, again, big picture thinker, lots of ideas, clearly lots of energy. So I just think it's important to give that acknowledgement that what these students are dealing with isn't has anything to do with their ability to comprehend or have intellect.
Right. Right. Yeah. And so once you get that trust with one teacher, then, it's a new school year, a new teacher, or one day there's a substitute, which is very anxiety building for her. So it's lots of challenges, lots of anxiety about, keeping things hidden, and, you don't want to be different in the classroom. And so I remember her spelling list, she would, one of her accommodations was, so they had a list of 20 spelling words. Well, she also doesn't memorize things. She doesn't times letters. Her spelling is bad. And so the spelling list got sent home, and I would basically pick which words she was going to do and teach them to her. And we, put songs to them in the kitchen while I'm cooking dinner, and she's sitting at the bar, and I'm teaching her her 10 spelling words. And she sits in classroom and listens to the teacher read off all 20 words, and she knows which 10 she has to spell. So
Okay.
it's
How did that work out? Was that
a lot of work.
yeah. Okay.
It's
You brought it up. You talk about the substitute teacher and the anxiety that can have for students. There's a story in Madeline's life where you are literally the superhero and the rescuer. And I was wondering maybe you could share that or share parts of that you're comfortable with.
Oh yeah, but I remember there's, it's always fairly similar. So this was language arts, and in language arts they take turns reading parts of a play. And this day the teacher was gone, the substitute was there, and she has a hard time advocating for herself, but she walked in and knew there was a substitute. And usually I get a text as soon as she gets to school. I get a text, there's a sub in such and such class today. And so I'm like, okay, what time is that? I gotta be prepared. And I think it was actually her first class of the day that day. And she told the substitute, I don't read aloud in class. I won't be reading. So the substitute's like, okay, well, so then they're reading along and doing parts, and they get to the part Madeline's supposed to read, and the teacher's like, whose part is this? And all the kids were like, Madeline, it's your part, just read it. And she's like, then she starts to feel the pressure, and she told the teacher, well, I don't have my book. So the teacher hands her book. It's like a clue. She told you she doesn't read. Like, now is when the light bulb should come on that um, oh yeah, this is the kid that told me she doesn't read. Let me just read it. No, she hands her the book, and all the kids are, oh, the teacher's going to be so mad at you when she comes back tomorrow, blah blah blah. And in the meantime, she is stressed, to the hilt, and she's texting me, and I'm like, so I called the school and I talked to the principal, and I said, and he got on the loudspeaker and called her to the office. And that was how she got out of that.
What are you thinking as the parent in that situation? Like what's going through your head in terms of like, I mean, you have a student or a kid in your situation who's willing to self-advocate for herself, do everything that she's supposed to do, and then there's still this breakdown.
Yeah, I just want to take somebody out.
What yeah, like what would you like educators to know, or like what?
The teacher needs to leave the notes about what's going on in the class with the students. This the sub needs to, and I've never worked in a school. I don't know, the process of how all those things work. The sub needs to be there in time to read all those notes and to understand that. I don't know what a sub is thinking. I don't know what sort of compassion they have for anything when somebody tells them they don't read and then they keep pushing them. I don't, I don't, I don't understand that. I don't.
Yeah, no, it's a hard one. It's a hard one. And teachers, I think, have a big heart and have empathy naturally for their students, but it's you get into these challenging environments where there might be this student in the classroom that can't read or doesn't read in a popcorn setting where, it's taking turns. And so I always wonder if there was something that can be done to avoid those
Yeah, so
situations.
she has it in her IEP that the teacher is supposed to leave notes for the sub, and they're supposed to be sure the sub sees those before they start class, and still didn't happen.
Yeah.
I don't.
What advice for parents that are maybe like just finding out about dyslexia, or their student kind of like you discovered it, like what advice would you have for those parents?
Um, I just advocate as much as I can, do what I can for my daughter. And a lot of what we do is because we don't want the next kid to go through what we went through. And so I don't think of it as I'm just advocating for her. I'm also making them aware so that hopefully the next time this comes up for them, they can realize and have a better understanding of, you know, oh yeah, this happened before, and I don't know, just be better informed, better aware of, and our school district has been great. I know everybody has different struggles with offering accommodations, but it's kind of been up to me to figure out what those accommodations should be. I mean, the special ed teacher, I think last year, was new, and I was informing her about websites she needed to go to and stuff. I'm like, it's, I don't know, you really have to. I mean, maybe some school districts are better, and I know some people have trouble getting accommodations just because their child is dyslexic. And thank goodness we didn't have that struggle. But
Right.
um, I I would, if I could do it over again, I would have made them teach her to read. So we taught her, you know, how to use her technology and stuff. But I remember one of the first things was, oh, let's get her a Franklin speller. And I'm like, yeah, we tried that. You have to know like the first three letters in order to get it to try to guess, and then to be able to read what word it comes up with.
Sure.
It was not helpful. And I actually told, so every year, every 3 years when she gets retested the second school psychologist that tested her. He, we were actually there before the teachers got there. We were both there early, and he asked me um, something about the process and his job and whatnot. And but because I told him, I said, I need you to qualify her for services. That's what I need you to do. Other than that, you're not helpful to me.
um, I love it because you're just clear on what needs to get done
Yeah.
and draw the line. And there's a few comments. One that pertains to this. I tell parents to breathe and applaud you for standing up for your kid and teaching your kid how to self-advocate. Subs can be a difficult challenge, so that's clearly recognized from Ellen Rose over here. And the technology dyslexia talks about technology constantly and what those skills have you. I know. Have you found assistive technology that does work for Madeline?
She at this point she pretty much uses the iPhone, iPad functionality.
Okay.
Uh, she, the Siri text to speech to text, and um, I don't even know about her books if she's using. I don't even think she's using her book sharing, her voice stream that much anymore. But I think she'll have to get back to it. She plans on going to college, so.
You know, it's interesting because as you were talking and telling about this journey, and we talk about May celebrating moms, what's really interesting in working with the International Dyslexia Association Oregon branch, all volunteer board. And so I work with some amazing parents and educators, and they all come there for different reasons. And they, might have been a student, their kid that kind of drew them into the space. But we need to do more for everyone else. And you share that too, even having your own daughter, but there's a bigger picture in mind.
Right.
For you, where does that come from? Where does that energy or thought, like, how does that?
I I don't know. It's just um I don't
It's like the ultimate advocate, like,
yeah.
where does that?
I mean it doesn't matter whose kid it is, people shouldn't be treated inappropriately. So I'm not really sure where that comes from, but
Well, it's interesting because you see Madeline in the work she does on the student panel, and it's not just her journey, but she is
mhm.
she recognizes her peers and wants to pull them along. And when we're at events, you see her pull the new student that's in the room together, and there's just this collective nature amongst this group and the parents and the teachers. So the culture is just it's pretty
Yeah,
inspiring to be
I think
around.
it's being grateful and appreciative for what we have, like not having the IEP fight and not having the accommodation fight, and and just wanting somebody else not to have to fight, as much.
Right.
So yeah, and I will tell her, remember when you first joined and how the older kids were with you, and it's just you know
Passing it on. I like to give guests the final word. What would your message be to in this space to parents or educators or students? What's your overall message to them?
So what I had thought about earlier, we kind of talked about, was that, I don't think when I first started this that I realized that it's that she could be taught to read, or how well she would ever read. That there was a different. I'm not a teacher. I didn't know there's different ways to teach people to read. So that finding that, getting reading taught so that everybody can learn to read, I think is yeah.
That is a great statement, Tim. I love that. just, and it's one of our taglines, and until everyone can read. And I think that you embody that. And whether you think you're a teacher or not, you are, clearly, and you have a lot of support on this chat, and a lot of hearts out there for you. And just want to thank you for being one of those amazing moms in the world of dyslexia.
Yeah.
And thank you. Yeah, thank you for taking the time to talk to us tonight. Reminder, we have our Arts and Minds event coming up in May, on May 22nd. So check for updates on there. And again, thank you so much for taking the time. Jane Cooper, you're an awesome mom. So you're getting still lots of praises on this. Have a great night. Thank you.
Thanks.